everyone, this is John Daly. I'm here again with Bernie Goldberg for another episode of the No BS Zone. How's it going today, Bernie?
Well, as usual, so far so good. Let's see how this
Good,
goes.
good. I'm doing great. I just got back from Las Vegas with my wife and some friends, and we had a blast. We got to meet John D. Domenico, had dinner with him. People know him here as the Trump impersonator that the two of us interviewed a few weeks ago, and it was a
Hold
blast.
on, hold on. That was a Trump impersonator?
Yeah, I was worried you might have that confused, Bernie. You didn't have your glasses on, and
I,
um,
I can't, up until a second ago, I thought that was Donald Trump I was talking to.
oh, I don't want to have to talk about Santa Claus either now. So,
Are you telling me there's no Santa Claus? What about the Easter Bunny?
oh, he's real for sure.
Okay, okay.
Jackalopes as well, the antelope hybrid of the bunnies. But anyway, today we're going to talk about a number of topics, beginning with a recent Wall Street Journal poll that showed Donald Trump leading Joe Biden in six of the seven key battleground states, all except Wisconsin. Bernie, is the race over? Do you think that we should just call it right now for Trump?
No, absolutely not. That poll, that Wall Street Journal poll, said Donald Trump was leading in six of key battleground states. That's a big deal, and it's not an outlier. Other polls have said the same thing. But in only three of those seven states was Trump leading outside the margin of error, meaning in four states, it was within the margin of error, so anything could happen. Then there are a couple of variables. Who knows what's going to happen with Joe Biden's mental and physical health between now and November 5th? That's a variable. Donald Trump's mouth is always a variable. And there's one other thing I'd like to talk about very briefly, and that's the Democratic National Convention in Chicago this summer. In 1968, the Democrats held a convention in Chicago also, and anti-war demonstrators clashed with police. It was on live television. People at home were watching in real time. Hubert Humphrey lost, Richard Nixon won. I am absolutely convinced that pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel, and to some extent anti-American demonstrators are going to show up in Chicago. I'm not saying they're going to have a riot with police. I'm not saying police are going to beat them with batons or anything like that. It could be, but that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that to the extent that the media outside of Fox News covers it live, to the extent that people see what they're saying and what they're doing and their position on Israel and the United States and on Palestine and Hamas, that will not help Joe Biden. That is a major variable. I think it will happen. And if it does, it will not help the president.
No, I think you could be right. Going back to the polling, and you mentioned other polls were showing these same things. I think people always based on what the polls say. Some people write them off. Some people put a lot of stock. I think they're always valuable as far as identifying vibes and trends. This far out, the polls aren't necessarily reflective of what will happen, of course, come November. But they do show what you and I and many others have known for some time. Biden is not a popular president. People aren't excited about him. They have concerns, I think some valid concerns. It should be noted too, as you mentioned, that although Trump is polling better than Biden, you're right, he is within the error of margin. I don't think he's polling I think in every single poll, he's still under 50%. In some cases, he's only barely edging out Biden. I think one of the states had it somewhere like 42 to 43. So, which would seem to me that at least, and I can't remember which state that was, but it would seem to mean that 13% potentially of poll takers are still up for grabs, or they're leaning toward a third alternative. So I thought that was sort of interesting.
With Biden underwater on almost every major issue, whether it's the border, inflation, crime, and a bunch of others, it's still so close. That can't be good news for Donald Trump. I mean, given that he's underwater on almost every important social issue, an economic issue, Donald Trump ought to be a shoo-in. He's not. It's going to be close. At least today in April, I'm saying it's going to be close. We have 7 months to go.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what the polls would look like right now if Republicans had nominated Nikki Haley instead.
I'll answer that for you. She'd be way out ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So
And
Bernie,
here's another thing.
sure.
Donald Trump is going to have to win over a significant portion of those Nikki Haley voters. You can't win whether you're a Democrat or a Republican unless you have a unified party behind you. And the best I can figure, Donald Trump has done nothing so far to unify the Republican Party. Just saying.
No, that's true. I agree. Bernie, you also wanted to talk about a column that I wrote last week. It was about Christian leaders going all in on Trump and politics in general, partisan politics. We've seen this for a while now, of course, but I wrote about some recent observations. But Bernie, I was curious what in that column exactly stuck out for you?
Well, first of all, let me state the obvious. I'm not a member of the team. I'm not an evangelical Christian. I'm not a Christian at all. But I am an American who notices things. And I understand why evangelical Christians would prefer Donald Trump over Joe Biden. And what I'm about to say isn't a suggestion that they should vote for Joe Biden. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that I don't want to hear evangelical leaders preaching to us about morality and ethics and right and wrong and Christian values when they so wholeheartedly support Donald Trump. I mean, I know why they support him over Joe Biden. They think liberals are out to destroy the nation and are well on the way to doing it. I get that. But if you want to vote for Donald Trump and you're a prominent evangelical Christian leader, do it privately, because you're losing credibility as far as this non-Christian is concerned.
And that was the angle I took. I mean, so I am a Christian, yeah, like you said, it's a credibility issue when you see them get as politically slanted as many of them now are. I wrote about how shocking it was to me. I went back in time a little bit when I saw those videos years ago of Jeremiah Wright carrying on about 9/11 and the chickens coming home to roost. And, that was just part of the reason. I mean, that the language was so out there that's obviously what became a big story. But the big thing for me, he wasn't saying these things in his off time. He was doing that during church sermons. And these days, at a professional, from a religious point of view, and these days I see people like I pointed out Franklin Graham. He's one example, using his platform to go as far as openly mocking people for not voting for Trump. And he posts pictures of church signs. These are usually where you see messages of hope, biblical messages. But he's posting church signs that take pot shots at Joe Biden. And what got me last week was this tweet from Graham, again, who's this hardcore Trump partisan. He doesn't really make any bones about it. But he wrote, in quotes, honesty is important. It's a biblical character trait, and it's something that is missing in much of politics today. And then
No kidding.
Yeah. And he used that, though, as a criticism of Joe Biden, not Donald Trump, who lies more than, Biden lies a lot. We both know that. Trump lies even more. So if you're going to use that in an attack line against one of the people and not the person that you're wholeheartedly behind, it comes back to a credibility problem. People notice these double standards. They see that these prominent Christian leaders are applying these biblical teachings purely along political lines, along partisan lines. And I think it's, I've seen some of this in my own life from friends. It is turning people off of their churches. I've seen it in my own community. I have friends who have left their churches over this type of stuff. I don't think church leaders should be bringing up politicians' names, maybe in any way, if they're sick or someone just passed away, maybe to a prayer for them. But going out there and endorsing them and kind of shoving them down people's throats, I just think that's terrible.
Well, for the very same people who despise Jeremiah Wright for what he did, to not see your point about evangelical Christian leaders, white evangelical Christian leaders. Come on. If you were against the leftist minister who said over the top things involving the world of politics, then you can't ignore the same thing, not as nasty, I would add, as Jeremiah Wright,
No.
but the same kind of things, broadly speaking, when it's your people who are doing it. You lose credibility when you take sides like that. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a member of the team. That's the extent of my observation on the issue.
Okay, great. Well, we'll go ahead and move to the next issue then. This one, we're trying to talk about the topic of abortion restrictions. They've been in the news a lot lately. The Florida Supreme Court recently allowed Governor Ron DeSantis's 6-week abortion ban to go into effect. That's a pretty tight restriction compared to what a lot of red states are currently, looking at or pushing or pursuing. Some political analysts believe that voter backlash to the Florida law could even put Florida potentially in play for Joe Biden in November. Do you see that happening, Bernie?
It could. Florida's reliably Republican, but abortion is a loser issue for Republicans. It was a loser issue in Kansas, a red state, a loser issue in Kentucky, a red state, a loser issue in every state that it's been on the ballot on after Roe v. Wade. Every place it's popped up, it's been a loser issue for Republicans. That said, now we have Donald Trump trying to thread the needle. Let's leave it up to the states. That doesn't please the pro-lifers, and it doesn't please the people who would like a position that says Donald Trump could come out and say, I'm for abortion up to 15 or 16 weeks. But he wanted to take both sides of that. I don't think he'll be able to take both sides throughout the campaign because he's going to be asked over and over again, where do you draw the line? But here's the part that bothers me, especially about my friends in the media, the liberal media. Republicans are being painted with some justification as a party that's outside the mainstream of American politics when it comes to abortion, because in more than a dozen states, they banned it outright. Okay. Democrats are never made to account for their position, never even made to explain their position. Are they against abortion in the 9th month? How about the 8th month? 7th month? 6th month? Reporters never force them to answer that question. Every now and then, you hear a lone voice in the Republican Party on TV raising that point, that it's Democrats that are the radical party when it comes to abortion. But there has been no, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, there has been no unified Republican voice out loud that is demanding the Democrats to state their position on abortion. Because if Republicans are out of the mainstream, so are Democrats. But only one party is getting away with not having to explain its position. And that's because Democrats have their allies in the media who aren't forcing the issue. And I think that's wrong. And I think that unless they come out and state a reasonable position, I'm defining reasonable, meaning along the lines of what most American voters want, then it's going to hurt Republicans, maybe even in Florida. One last thing. I totally understand how abortion is a moral issue for many people. They see abortion as nothing less than murder. I understand that. But in a big country like ours with varied ideologies and people who are religious and people who aren't religious, abortion is also a political issue. And it's one that hurts Republicans every time it comes up.
Yeah, I think politically it definitely will hurt. It has, like you said, it already has. It will continue. You got to part of me is impressed with what DeSantis did there, because he knew that going with a 6-week law that would potentially hurt, him politically as well, and Republicans. But he went ahead and did it anyway. That's what happens with when Roe versus Wade was overturned. It goes down to the states, and I'm all for that. I mean, I was all for overturning Roe versus Wade. I'm all for that decision being made at the state level. That's basically now what the position Donald Trump is taking. I mean, he's almost to the point where it's almost like he was taking he's changed it to more of like a center of the road, almost like a pro-choice position. People can do whatever they want. He's not exactly an advocate for the pro-life movement, but I do wonder. Florida, though, I'm not sure. I mean, I think it'll hurt. I don't see Biden winning that. I mean, they're a pretty red state right now. DeSantis won by 20 points there. The demographics have all been going towards a more, pro-Republican movement there. I have a trouble believing he can take Florida.
So do I, but I think it's not as safe, however safe it was before the 6-week ban. It isn't that safe anymore. And by the way, it's not only the 6-week ban. In November, they have a ballot measure to enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution of Florida. Whenever these issues come up, as I just said, they energize Democrats and independents. Democrats are going to show up in bigger numbers than they would have otherwise. That's a sure thing, I believe. And so are independents going to show up in bigger numbers. I mean, a lot of Democrats might have sat home on election day figuring, I'm not voting for Trump, but I'm not voting for Biden. I'm just sitting home. Abortion on the ballot, they're going to show up. And they're going to show up to vote for abortion rights. While they're at it, they may vote against Senator Scott, the Republican. I don't think he's safe at all. They may cast a vote for Joe Biden when they would have not otherwise. Abortion is not an issue that helps Republicans, and they better come out with a unified position pretty soon, or it's not going to help them in November.
I've seen some analysis. Some people say that this change in Trump's position, and it is a change, do you that it might actually hurt him with the pro-life movement, with pro-life voters? Do you think that's going to happen at all?
No, I don't. I think that's a Democratic wishful thinking on the part of Democrats, because I think there's no way in the world that pro-life people are going to vote for Joe Biden. That isn't going to happen. And abortion is only one of many, many issues that give them reason not to vote for Joe Biden. So that's not the issue. It's not like they're going to say, well, Donald Trump disappointed us. Donald Trump betrayed us. We're going to now, that isn't going to happen. That's wishful thinking. I think they'll vote for Donald Trump. Every one of them will still vote for Donald Trump. That's not the issue. The issue is whether more Democrats will come out and vote against Republicans and support Donald Trump when they might have otherwise sat home on election day because of the abortion issue.
No, I agree.
You follow my thinking on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's the same. I think some people were suggesting that some people, pro-life voters would stay home, not necessarily vote for Biden, but I don't even think that's true. I feel like Christian conservatives, a large number of them have already made so many allowances for Trump. I think they're more than happy to make this allowance for him as well, So yeah, I don't see it happening at all.
It's not going to.
Right.
It won't affect things that way.
No, I think that's exactly right. Well, that was our last topic. Anything else you'd like to talk about this week, Bernie?
No, just tell your friends about us.
Absolutely.
And some of you have been doing that, and we thank you for that. But the others, come on, get a subscription to your liberal friends and make them crazy, and get a subscription for your family. It's a good gift coming up. What holiday is coming up? Mother's Day is coming up soon. Father's Day in June. Come on, help us out here. We want a big audience. We have one now. We want an even bigger audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as always, leave your comments in the comment section. Let us know what topics you would like us to talk about. I'm working on maybe lining up some more interviews. We haven't done those in a while, so those are always fun. So yeah, let us know what you think. And Bernie, I guess we'll go ahead and just leave it there. I hope you have a great day.
You too, John. Bye-bye.